Gary, you good? Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'll call this meeting to order. If you could, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is that first one for you?
Yes, it is.
Sure, we're going to turn this right over to Bob.
March is Board of Education Appreciation Month, so we decided to take the first meeting in March and just give a special thank you to the Board of Education. And it seemed appropriate, since we were having so many students here tonight, that once we finish recognizing all our students, if you would all join us for cake, certainly in honor of yourselves, but as a way to say thank you to our Board of Ed. We do have some cake and punch that we'll get to after we recognize our students. I don't think people realize in the general public how much work it is to be a member of the Board of Education. You know, we come to school every day and we're excited about working here, but for board members, it's almost a second job. The only difference is you don't quite get paid for it, but you suffer as much grief sometimes. So I think that it's important for everybody in our community to know that without a strong Board of Education and without a group of people that advocate for the children of East Hampton, we would be in a very different place. So I think all of us in the room tonight, especially since we're recognizing some of the great achievements of our students, the people who never get the applause are the Board of Ed members. So if you would all join me in giving the board just a gentle round of applause tonight. Because I know they are always very happy to applaud your efforts. So tonight we offered them a little bit of applause and a piece of cake, and that's all they really get for being a board member. Plus, we did give you a little lunch tote to take with you, because most of our board members come directly from work. So they can just pack a dinner. Instead of packing lunch, you'll be able to pack a dinner before your board meeting.
We could put a coffee thermos in here.
Yes, it's big.
Plenty of room for coffee.
Plenty of room.
Nice. Okay, thank you for that. Interboard liaisons, we have Mr. Hines here from the Board of Finance. Any comments from you, sir?
Nope, got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah. Okay. Labor Union, Mr. Shalins. Oh, yes, you have company.
We have Mr. Quinn as well, so he's going to do the honors and give the report.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you guys to the Board of Ed for everything that you do for the students and teachers and for administration as well. We just want to try to get the word out for the meeting in 2 weeks with the Board of Finance, try to get our members to go to support the whole process. So thank you guys for all that you do.
Thank you. And now we'll turn over update from Mary.
I'll be talking a little bit later in the presentation as well, so a couple of key updates. I'll let Mr. Gonzalez speak to this in more detail, but our preschool accreditation process has been a big focus for Memorial School, and we were pleased to welcome NIAC today for their site visit. A tremendous amount of work, particularly from Mr. Gonzalez, Mrs. Godori, and the entire preschool team went into that process. So we're very proud of them and look forward to that formal feedback to a component of our programming that's been growing, and it's been something that everyone contributed to, Mr. Mosier, Mrs. Aceta. It's really exciting to see that process move to this stage. Additionally, we had our East Hampton 2030 committee meet last week. It was really exciting to get to brainstorm and think creatively for our school district that far out, and so we look forward to sharing those efforts with you soon. We have professional learning coming up on Friday of this week. I'll talk a little bit about that later, but we'll be working with our teachers on key areas, and each building has a separate schedule for their professional learning, and our curriculum council that I've introduced to you previously will continue to meet and move that forward. Additionally, March 27th is an early release date in the district, and an event that we're looking forward to that day is working with our paraeducators, a huge support to our entire teaching and learning process. And we're really committed to their professional growth as well. So we have some formal opportunities for them coming up on March 27th. And then planning for both the second half of the school year, there's a lot of major events for us. SAT is coming up soon at the high school, as well as our state assessment window, but also with an eye towards next year as buildings look at scheduling and programmatic shifts should our budget move forward. So in East Hampton, that means we kind of have a dual process where we look at what we have, but also really optimistically plan for next steps.
Okay. Questions for Mary? Schools, we'll get some updates. Yes?
Yeah, I'd like to go to piggyback off of what Mary just started, and first by thanking the team, Stacey Gibson, Jamie McGuire, Aaron Petrone, Melissa Alford, Leslie Wykander, Carol Sicoccio, Randy Swansinger, Juliette Boissier, Lori Jabal, and all of the rest of the team and support. Mary, Karen, Rod, Brandy, total team effort, great way to highlight the great kids and teachers that we have at Memorial. I really look forward to, in a couple of months, because it could take up to 3 months, to get to the decision report, coming before the board, sharing our accreditation, and talking about some of the formal feedback that we received. Just a couple highlights. They do go over a few things. While they can't go into the process in too much detail, if there were any safety concerns, you would have known right at the visit, and you don't get accreditation, you got past that step. And then there was also 4 required criteria that we met. 3 of the 4 that she could tell me about. The other one I'm confident we met as well. If we don't get a call from NIAC before the end of the week, that's good news, and then we'll just await the written report. But again, thank you to everybody who's involved for the support.
Center School, I'd like to commend both the high school and middle school for their capstone projects. We've been the beneficiary of some clubs as well as some mentorship opportunities. So, thank you for providing those opportunities for our students. The Step Up concert is March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Center School has 219 participants out of about 280 total students in the school.
Wow.
So it will be a moment place while the Step Up concert is going on. We, as always, exhibited our kindness and caring as we welcomed 3 new 4th graders to Center School that started today. So 3 new students, and everybody was welcoming with open arms. Conferences, it's always a nice journey that we see in March when we meet for the second time with families and really see the growth that their students have, the progress that all students have made. So that is a half day, Wednesday and Thursday. We also look forward to professional learning on Friday to make sure that we are well suited to finish out the year strong.
All right, the middle school, we have a volleyball tournament the 11th as part of our partnership with the prevention partnership and the PTO. That'll be this Wednesday. Right now, I think we had 3 teams last we looked. We're trying to coax another team into it.
Oh, no, I think it went up to 9 teams now, just within days. Yeah, it's going to be huge.
That's excellent.
I hope kids will come in.
Yes, great.
Participate.
That's Wednesday night?
Wednesday. Preparing for the Memorial Day play, March 20th starts. Really excited for that. Thursday night, we're having a kind of a joint event. We have a school dance for our students, but we also have, as part of the local prevention council, is hosting called Hidden in Plain Sight. They're going to basically take a classroom, set it up like a child's bedroom, and kind of guide parents through what might be in your kid's bedroom that you're not necessarily recognizing as something that shouldn't be in there. So hopefully that'll be a well-attended event for parents, and we're really looking forward to it.
I'm looking at the kids in the room, rolling their eyes and, yeah, cringing, yeah.
And at the high school, we have a number of student recognitions this evening. Most importantly, SATs at the high school for juniors will be on March 25th. The sports awards will be on the 18th. I know Bob will talk about many of the other great things going on at the high school. I want to thank Matt Warner and Caitlin Sullivan for all their work so far in our scheduling process. We are very much ahead of where we were last year. Students have finished requesting their courses, and both Matt and Caitlin are working to build sections with our team leaders and meet with students where there might be any conflicts or kids that were absent or have concerns. So we're moving forward in that regard.
Wow, you are far ahead. Isn't that usually like May? Yeah. Wow. Nice.
People are going away during the summer.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I'm being optimistic.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's a reason for the push.
Well,
No.
no, in all
I'm
seriousness,
kidding, yeah.
I've always tried to, mainly in high school, as in any school is a blur with everything else going on, but I also feel like, I believe if we have students that have a conflict and need to make a decision, I'd rather have that conversation with them in March and April, because they're planning their summer, which entails college visits,
Yep.
and what they want to do in their future, so it's important to have those conversations with families before we leave for the summer.
Smart. Okay. All right, before we move on, one addition if we could, can I get a motion on item 9.1 under the superintendent's report with the coronavirus? I'd like to add and possible action on out-of-state field trips to that. I'll make that motion. Second, Jeff, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. Now, we open it up, audience of citizens. Any comments, questions, remark? I did receive an email from Tanya Soames, a letter asking to be put into the minutes, so that will get turned over. Any other comments?
There were two that asked to be put in click.
Oh, what was the other one? I didn't see the other one.
Kim Paluska. It was recent.
Okay, I might have missed that one. Do we have that, Rose? You haven't seen that one yet?
I did not get a copy of that one.
Yeah, we can forward it to you.
Okay, can you forward it like to me and to Rosemary and make
Yeah.
sure we get it? Okay, thank you. So there's two. Anyone else that is here? Right, okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda. Nancy, second? Nancy. Oh, that's right, I gotta get the letters right here. Discussion? All those in favor? Now we have the fun stuff.
So we're going to recognize some people now, ladies and gentlemen, so we can all model good hygiene and prevent the spread of coronavirus. We are not going to shake anybody's hands tonight, so please do not be insulted when you come forward if we do not shake your hand. We can bump elbows, or we can just, tap each other's toes or something like that, but we are going to not shake hands. We're going to keep the East Hampton Public Schools healthy and open for as long as possible at this point. So please know how excited we are to honor all of you tonight. It'll just be minus a handshake for now. There is a bottle of Purell right on the corner there too. So in lieu of handshake, on your way past the bottle, if you want to take a little dab, you are welcome to. That is valuable stuff right now.
Yes.
I'm surprised it's even sitting in this room. It's about half full. So it's probably worth about $30 even half full. So we're going to start tonight with our State of Connecticut VFW Teacher of the Year. Our local VFW recognizes one of our teachers, and then they enter them into the State of Connecticut VFW Teacher of the Year process. And we are very excited that this year our local VFW Teacher of the Year is also the State of Connecticut Teacher of the Year. Katie, would you come down, please? We have Mrs. Teason going first, so she'll model what we're hoping all of our students will do. Just for the excellent, very good. That's a great start. We'd like you to come right down in this general area so that we can get you into the live stream that's going on. And perfect. Everybody looks good with a nice blue background on the live stream.
We do have her essay that was written on behalf of Katie, but I can speak more to personal experience. As a social studies teacher here for a number of years, when Katie came on board as our library media specialist, one of the things that she did was really bolster all the departments in the school and what they can do with interdisciplinary learning, using the resources in the library, getting guidance from Katie, but also being that co-teacher. Nowadays, we find her in almost every single history class, almost every single English class, where she's actually co-teaching library media learning and media lit and film, the capstone experience. She's one of the co-advisors and that experience. So a lot of things that Katie has done for us here at the school is broaden the spectrum of what does it mean for informational learning. And without her, I think she really wanted to still be that teacher. She still wanted to have that connection with kids. She didn't want to just be someone helping find some reading material, but really, how do I take this, how am I a support for someone else, and what can I do? In addition to that, she was able to enrich the entire school this year when she was able to bring a Holocaust survivor for the seniors before they went on that Washington, D.C. trip. So Katie is an invaluable resource, and when Mr. Hearn and I talked about VFW Teacher of the Year from our school, one of the first people that came to mind was Mrs. Teague and everything that she's done, not only for us as a staff, as a support, but what does she do for every kid every single day. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would you introduce your family?
Oh yeah, so my husband Matt is here. He's also a teacher. He's a teacher of the visually impaired for Besby. Our older son Liam is a fourth grader. And then our younger son Sean is actually turning 5 today. It's his birthday.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a plaque.
He's got,
Yeah.
yes, you can go right now from you guys.
Come and be in here.
Where should I go?
Short people on their hands. No, you get to be in there.
One, two, three, smile. I'm gonna take one more flat.
Congratulations. They might have a little water in them.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice. Thanks.
Yes, I did.
I know.
So excited.
Somebody go.
Next, even though she's too young to run for president, she was winner of the 2020 Voices of Democracy contest. Emma, if you would come up, please.
So another benefit of being a former history teacher here, I was in charge of organizing the Voice of Democracy. Students statewide, grades 9 through 12, there's also a middle level competition, have the opportunity to write based on a theme, whatever is determined by the VFW. This year it was what makes America great. And in a certain number of characters are allowed to represent that. We've been very successful with our students. I have a history glutton of punishment. I did a little research. She's taken or currently taking all the AP classes in the social department. So not surprising, she found success in writing how she feels. I asked her to give her speech. She fought me tooth and nail, but needless to say that she makes us proud not only as a representative of the school, but as a history teacher as well. There's quite a few in here today, so congratulations.
Thank you.
You walk way too fast, you gotta read your feet.
Word for word.
All right, don't make the photographer laugh. One more.
And it was supposed to be like 6 feet apart.
Okay, hold on.
Wide angle lens.
1, 2, 3, smile. Thank you.
So when the first 5 cases of coronavirus went through here. Oh, Emma, would you introduce your guest here tonight too, please?
I have my mom here. She's right there.
Thank you very much for joining us. Next, we're going to introduce our Connecticut Association of Boards of Education student leaders. This is nice to do this on this night since the CABE, which is the state agency for the Boards of Education, sponsors this award. There's no better night to do it than the night that we honor the board. So we have 2 high school students and 2 middle school students we're going to introduce you to. Let's start with the high school students.
I will start with Noah Gibson.
Noah, come right down. Let's bring both of the high school students down.
This is teach and There's no finer example of a leader than senior Noah Gibson. Noah is conscientious, mature, honest, and a trustworthy student. Academically, he has challenged himself each year and is inducted in his junior year to the National Honor Society for his outstanding character, leadership, and community service. He has been the boys varsity tennis captain for the past 2 years, and this past fall was the soccer captain as well. He is respected by his peers and the faculty throughout the high school, and he has served as a class of 2020 historian for the full 4 years. Noah's leadership does not end when the bell rings. He volunteers his time with Special Olympics, and he is also an Eagle Scout. He has started his own lawn mowing business during spring and summer months. Noah is interested in majoring in risk management and insurance in college, and we are all confident that he will find great success in your future.
Congratulations, Noah.
Vanessa Naughton embodies all of the qualities they could hope for in a leader. Vanessa served her class as an officer for 3 consecutive years. She proved to be dependable and forward-thinking in that role. She serves as the UConn ECE, which is the Early College Experience Student Ambassador. She is also a dancer and has been dancing for over 15 years. And that is definitely something that she attributes to her resilience and work ethic too. She has spent a lot of time training, and that has helped her. Vanessa is also a musician, playing the flute for concert band and the saxophone for jazz band. As a sophomore, she was inducted into the Triumph Music Honor Society, where she now serves as the vice president. Furthermore, Vanessa is a co-president of our largest club, which is the Tract and community service based. She serves also as the Spanish club vice president. While it's not uncommon for many students in general, to sort of reach a burnout point, you certainly have managed juggling several of your extracurricular roles very well. You have excelled and your self-discipline and organizational skills. Sorry, my thumb was in the way. Vanessa plans to study psych in college and as soon as she graduates. And again, congratulations to you.
Would you introduce your family?
My dad, my mom, and my brother Sam.
Thank you very much for coming. And Vanessa?
I just love my dad. Tracy.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
All right, right here. Thank you. Thanks.
Now look at mom.
Wait, Paul, sorry. And now our middle school students, if you would come down, Delaney and Riley. Okay. Huh? 2 takers on the Purell, nice.
Delaney Russell brings an infectious energy to her class. She's always willing to share and work well with others. A captain of 2 sports, she also participates in various clubs and activities and is known for her compassion, hard work, and sense of humor. Where you got that from? Delaney is a role model for her classes, constantly demonstrating appropriate work and behavior. You do a fabulous job every day for us, and we're really impressed with what a role model you have become in our classes.
Thank you.
Riley Flatley is similarly a role model in a different way. Self-efficacy and reserved, Riley leads by example. She quietly motivates her other peers to work, complete their assignments, and do their very best. Never drawing a lot of attention to herself or seeking attention and an active member of our Early Act Club, which is our community service club. Riley leads herself and others towards bettering themselves in our school community. Thank you very much.
Delaney, would you introduce your family?
I have my mom, my dad, my sister Dempsey, and my grandparents.
Thank you for coming tonight. And Riley,
I have my mom and my dad with me.
thank you very much for coming. Don't be shy. Come, you can come right in front.
All right, 1, 2, 3, smile. One more. Smile. Great, thank you.
He's not
Congratulations to both of you. Mr. Smith, I hope it's okay to denote, I know Mrs. Tejan announced that her son was having his 5th birthday tonight. Yes. It's also Mr. Donahue's birthday in the back. Oh, great. So happy birthday, Mr. Donahue. Happy birthday. I promised to my parents. Okay. Next, we'd like to introduce you to our 2020 Scholar Athletes. The CIAC annually recognizes our top athletes and our top scholars, and how impressive for our greatest athletes to be great scholars as well. Mr. Verna.
So, Noah Gibson and Maggie Donahue, want you guys to come on down? So both Noah and Maggie possess excellent leadership skills and are both role models for their teammates and peers, both on the athletic fields, in the courts, in the classroom, and hallways in our school society. They are both tireless workers, possessing tremendous work ethic, which allow them to both lead by example, as well as to ask their teammates to give their best efforts as well. They both understand the broad landscape of high school athletic programs and are able to positively influence the entire roster at all levels of the teams they are a part of. They also represent the best of the best in our classrooms, as well as in our community. They both volunteer their time to causes they believe in, affecting those in our community and outside for the better. Noah and Maggie are shining examples of how young people can impact others and improve the lives of everyone they interact with. We are extremely proud of them both and are fortunate to have them as ambassadors of our school community. We wish them the best as they will soon leave us to continue their life journeys with what we know will be very successful futures. Congratulations.
And Maggie, if you would introduce your family.
I have my mom, my dad, and my brother Jace.
Thank you for coming tonight, and happy birthday.
They will both be honored in May at the Cass CIAC Scholar Athlete Awards Banquet at the AquaTurf.
Always a wonderful dinner.
Yes. That's okay. Yes. One more. Thank you.
Congratulations. We were going to honor 2 students, our outstanding arts students. The Connecticut Association of Schools honors students who excel in the area of visual arts, music, and theater. But I think they're both so involved in the play, they probably just went home. So we will make sure that they get their plaques, and but not shake their hands as well.
And they will both be recognized at the AquaTurf for a banquet in April. So I'm going to get a lot of AquaTurf meals this year.
Yes, excellent. It's dinner season. So
now we're going to take a little recess.
Take a short break. Why don't our birthday people get the first couple of pieces of cake out there? Yes. Sounds like a good idea. And please, all of you, join us for cake and punch for about
10 minutes.
10 minutes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Are you okay?
all have
Should be her name.
Well, my son.
And apparently the number is not a cell phone. That's right, that's what you want to
Two of my own. We've inherited fire.
do. You send me stuff too.
You know, three people in their 20s, my mom was in her 70s, me, and never. Oh, you met everybody?
No, that's fine, I just,
Yeah, I mean, it's like, making dinner and giving baths and then my son. Here you go. Well,
Not like yours, but this cruise. I know. Good for you.
Oh, I know.
She's very cute.
I can't read that.
I know.
Still Rachel read it.
That's what I call her. Okay, are we ready? 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
They should have it every time.
No,
Oh, are we starting?
we are starting, but that's okay. I think Jim just stepped out. Okay, and we have our students here. We're going to continue and turn it right over to you guys for some updates.
All right, so as far as athletics, the girls basketball team won the Shoreline Championship this morning, and currently they are in the midst of the state tournament to possibly play for the Class S championship, which would be at Mohegan. The boys basketball team lost in the quarterfinals of the Shoreline tournament, and they will be starting to play in the state tournament tomorrow. And after his Class S state championship win, wrestler Dylan Levesque placed third in state opens, and then continued to place sixth in New England's for his weight class.
And then as for student activities, the Sandy Hook Promise organization came to our school and had assemblies with all the classes for a Start With Hello program, which gave us strategies and tips for building a strong school community. The second blood drive of the school year is scheduled for this upcoming Thursday. National Honor Society ended up canceling America's Next Top Bell Ringer because of lack of interest in participants in it. And then the application process for the class of 2021's National Honor Society begins this Thursday.
And also, the cheerleaders also on the Shoreline.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow, okay. Personnel has nothing at this time. Policy and curriculum.
Policy, we met prior to this meeting, and a couple of things later on in the agenda.
Finance, transportation, buildings and grounds. No, nothing.
Met on Friday
We met on Friday, yes.
to review the capital plan
Yes,
that was approved by the capital committee.
And that's still on track. Good, okay.
Are we having, we'll have an update as far as the superintendent's update? Is that what?
Yes.
Should we discuss?
Yep.
Okay.
Public Relations Subcommittee. Amy.
We had a meeting at 4:30 today. We're going forward with everybody's agreement on a couple projects. The first one, we're going to develop a budget ambassador program where we get a parent volunteer from each grade who will help in disseminating some of the budget information over the next few months. We will also be equipping them with kind of like an elevator speech, helping them to become a little bit more comfortable in discussing the finer points of our budget this year and what it achieves. We will also be giving them business cards that have an email where they can one-stop shop for the Board of Education, the Town Council, and the Board of Finance, so that they can email one email address and it will be disseminated to all 3 elected boards. So the budget ambassadors and all of us and the schools will all have these cards, and we will encourage people to send their emails if they can't come and speak out at the public meetings. We're working on getting the elementary PTO meeting moved to 5 o'clock here for next Monday. Melissa is just talking to her board now. I would also like to get in contact with the Interact Club and see if we can get for some of these bigger meetings where we're encouraging parents to come, if we can get babysitting services through Interact to kind of support that. And I will be making buttons. Vote yes for education. So we will be working on getting those for the next meeting. And if anyone has questions.
Just a correction, the Monday you're talking about is not next Monday, but the 23rd.
The 23rd, yes, I'm sorry.
So there is a 6 o'clock public hearing here ahead of your meeting, or you are welcome to cancel your meeting or push your meeting to another day.
Yeah, we were going to talk about that. Do you know anything on the agenda at this point?
It's just a public hearing where the town...
No, for our meeting.
I have not added anything, just in case you decided to cancel it.
Okay. Should we do something on that now?
You can.
Thoughts, ideas? Our next meeting on the 23rd.
But we should still have all the board members here for the public
Yes,
hearing.
public hearing at 6.
That should be
Yes,
the meeting, yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I think, do we make a motion to?
We would to have to cancel our meeting if we're going to do that,
Cancel the meeting
or...
and attend this public hearing instead.
Yeah, can we, anything pressing already on our agenda that we need to
Nope,
address?
we've
that
not
now?
invited any students. We haven't set up any program presentations.
So now would be the time to cancel it or have it following the public hearing?
You could do one or the other.
Okay. Or pick another date. Anyone want to throw an idea out? I'm seeing cancel from a lot of people.
Yeah. I think we should be here for that. That's an
Yes.
important night.
Probably will not be a short public hearing, so to have a meeting after
It
that
would be bad.
would be probably not.
Okay,
all that
then
feasible.
I will make a motion that we cancel our March 23rd meeting so that we may attend the Board of Finance public hearing at 6 p.m. Second, Amy, other discussion? Sound good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Do we have the meeting on the next day, 24th?
No, we're gonna skip that meeting week altogether. Yeah, and that's the one you won't be here. No,
It won't be next 2 weeks from now.
yeah.
And just to note
So it
about,
worked out?
There you go.
just to note about April, your April schedule is the first Monday because the second Monday is school vacation week. So you'll have a meeting the first Monday and the fourth Monday. So 6 and 20,
20th,
27.
22nd, right?
27.
7.
27th, okay.
So instead of second and fourth, first and fourth.
Yep, okay.
Okay.
We all got that squared away?
So it'll be on the 27th.
Yes.
Yeah, the date we're changing is instead of the 13th, you'll have a meeting on the 6th.
27th, April.
And I believe that's on that little schedule that is at your places.
On the calendar, yes.
And just one more quickie. The PR committee will be composing a letter to the editor supporting our decision to reinstate the 4 teachers. I will be emailing it out tomorrow to the board. If you would like your name signed on it, please just reply to me and not everyone, so we're not creating an issue. And if you, I'm gonna hopefully go home and work on it tonight. If you can email a response to me before noon, we can get it in the paper this week. If not, it'll have to wait until the following week, because the deadline is Tuesday at noon. Okay,
Okay.
that's it from me.
Thank you. Anything new with Learn?
Meeting Thursday morning.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Building committee, we are still waiting.
Still waiting, yeah.
Still waiting. All right, communications superintendent.
So in your packet is the approved capital report. There was some discussion, actually Nancy was at the meeting. Do you want to just bring the board up to speed on that?
Yes. Mark, as you know, represents us at the Capital Committee meetings, but I did attend just to observe. So the town manager, you have a copy of the town manager's letter to the Capital Committee talking about the overall capital improvement plan that he's proposing, which it actually was approved at that meeting to go forward. So you'll see, starting at the end of the first page, there's just a small discussion of education expenses, which are relevant to us. So you'll see that the town manager recommended a reduction in the school safety line. The numbers are small, but it's a 50% cut. But I think the overall, the more pressing issue, I suppose, or interesting issue to look at is something that I think anecdotally members might have talked about in the past. I know I have. Where does technology belong? If we just put it out like that. When is technology considered an operating expense, and when is it considered capital? I mean, that's an accounting question, different treatments, and a philosophy, if you will. So the town manager does state his opinion that he believes that most of the technology expenses belonging to education should be classified as operational. He's talking about in the future, whether in fiscal year 2021 or in the future, efforts should be made to move expenses related to routine annual replacement of laptops and computers, Chromebooks, to the school district's operational expenses. This will create a one-year bump in the school's expenses, but the move is appropriate. Well, yes, it would be quite a bump. And although it's not in this letter, the town manager was kind enough to say in his comments that, of course, that would have to, you'd have a public relations type management of that, of the expectations and what that would mean to our Board of Ed budget. So, I think that's something that we need to think about for the future. What does that mean to us? Is that something we agree with? And Karen actually in the committee meeting had provided some information to us, research on what other towns do. So, well, it's nothing that I think we have to decide right now. I think it's something, we do have to consider in the future and perhaps kick off the next budget season, which for us starts so early. Maybe if we continue having those tri-board meetings, possibly in fall, October, I think was when we had done it. Perhaps that is the forum to discuss this going forward.
But, it is really an accounting question. It's not a question for this board.
I know, and we're getting mixed, and Karen, I
Yeah,
definitely want your input.
We'll have
but
different opinions.
I thought the direction and the reason it's in capital is because of the town finance director.
We have been told in the past, it's true, by the finance director that I remember the Chromebook specifically should stay
In capital.
the capital,
Yep.
but he, I think, is now saying could be moved to operational. So I don't know if that is a judgment call, if it's an opinion, if you can research and see what others think or what corporations do, but I don't think it's such a hard and fast rule necessarily. Certainly that large machinery that you know, you have for a long time, that's capital. I mean, I think everybody knows that. But it gets a little, I don't know, the Chromebooks
Well,
have a life that's
time.
longer than a year. You know,
Right,
sometimes
I mean-
you use a year as
But
life.
like, so we are, I mean, we know what the life cycle of the Chromebook is. It's 5 years now, right? They bumped it up to 5 years.
Mhm.
And that's it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a
Well,
lot of
that's it,
times,
but that's, I mean,
that makes it a little longer term.
that means, yeah, I mean, in terms of taxes, we need to amortize it over 5 years.
Right, and I think,
You can't do that with expenses for the GA. Unless, I mean, I may be wrong.
no,
I mean,
true.
what we thought.
Yeah, a lot of times it's a year seems to be the criteria for that. So I think there's a little work to be done talking about that. What is the criteria?
I mean, the positive thing is that it's, that, you know, we get to decide if they
Yeah.
get cut from a budget. You know, if that's the line that gets cut, of course.
That's true.
It's,
Yeah.
you know, the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, you know, everybody can have an opinion on it, I suppose, or do we think that's a good thing or not a good thing to have control over it? But, you know, I really would like to pursue, you know, what is the correct treatment? What do other places do? And
So how about we put this topic onto finance, transportation, building, and
Yeah,
grounds?
well, Karen, there
Over
is
the next
information at
several
your
months.
place right now. Karen has done some research on
Yeah.
districts, how they're funding one-to-one devices. And, you know, if you look at her statistics, it's mainly in the operating budget over the capital budget.
Yeah.
It's right over
Oh, yep.
there. But this is not a conversation that you have after your budget's been turned into the town. This is a conversation because we need to start preparing our budget in October, November, that we really need to have at the end of the summer into September, so we can get a definitive agreement on where the budget is going to go. And if you're going to add $100,000, $200,000, or $300,000 worth of technology, or you're just adding the Chromebooks, realizing that in that first year, there's gonna be a bump, you're gonna see that on top of whatever percentage
Yeah.
that gets approved.
So why don't we have the finance committee take this information Karen got and start working on it in the next month or two, so that by summertime, there's some momentum and direction and everything.
And you said the town manager said it wasn't applicable to this year, right?
No.
No, he's saying that for this year's capital budget?
Well, the example was given that the Board of Finance could add to the budget. If the Board of Finance felt like they would like to see it back in the operating budget, the Board of Finance does have the authority at this point to add money into the budget.
So they could take it from capital and add it.
That's not the
into
statement I made. That is the statement the town finance
The
director
finance
made.
director.
Fund.
Yeah.
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 Yes, Mark Lambert, you know, represented us at that meeting and did say, well, you know, we've passed our budget. We already have a budget in place, so to go back and change it. And then the finance director did make that statement, well, the Board of Finance can add to your budget. And that's something
Great.
to ponder, isn't it? Mark had also mentioned something that I thought was important.
At all.
Yeah, I thought Mark made a very good comment that I think is important. Again, it would be nice to address at something like a tri-board meeting where, you know, we're all there. He said, well, you know, this is new, you know, we haven't done this before, and it would be nice to know that we're all being treated equally, that the Board of Ed Technology or whatever, you know, if it's in our operational budget, then across the board, you know, similar types of things on the town side, are they in, you know, that operating budget? And that, I think, is very valid.
Yep.
You know, everything should be, if that's a change or an implementation,
Then
you
it
know,
should be
of a new
equity
way,
across
then it
the
should
group,
be,
sure.
right.
So what was the response? I mean, that information is certainly readily available.
Was there?
It was just a comment. There was no real reply to it or fleshing out of that, or that was Mark's comment, which I thought was very smart to point out.
That's a good point.
So I don't know the answer to that.
I do know that the library, when we purchased which I would think other than like town hall and such would be the other big kind of bank of computers in town that they are in our operational budget replacements.
Yeah.
Even with the longer life.
Yeah, because it's the same thing, we're constantly rotating, you know, that one's 6 years old and that one's getting built this year and newer ones come in, so it's kind of similar, they're on a rotating basis.
But the quantities are lower.
The quantities are much lower, there's probably only 8 computers in the public computers in the hall.
Okay. then
I
we'll
should
get that
know,
going.
what's the lifespan of a computer, a Chromebook, if it's treated properly? 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
5 years.
Yeah.
So again, it's a matter of when Google will support, how long they will
It's a-
support the hardware. They actually just upped it from 4 years to 5 years, right? After a certain amount of time, it won't, because it doesn't, the operating system's on the cloud for the Chromebook. And after a certain amount of time, it just won't work.
And that saves on IT expenses and having information being on the cloud, is that the reason for the cloud purpose?
Well, it's less money up front, certainly.
Okay, so that's definitely an ongoing
Yeah, I think it'll
capital
take some
tech.
looking at.
Could take some conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item is Board of Finance schedule. I have a calendar for you. Board of Finance events are highlighted in yellow. Your business meetings are highlighted in blue. Put that up on your refrigerator. Your spring is all planned out at this point. I'll send you weekly updates and reminders on that as well. The next item, just a budget update. I wanted to share this with you. This was in this week's update, and I think it's important that we be prepared to answer a couple of questions to counter misinformation that is out there. First of all, there was a question, why are we adding the teaching positions that was in the original budget? The truth is we're not adding any teaching positions. We are strictly moving staff around. So on the front page, these blue positions, even though they say we're restoring a classroom teacher and restoring world language, we're actually restoring it by moving people around the district. So our goal, our 2 crucial positions for next year that we identified in the first round of the budget is that we wanted to restore a classroom teacher, move grade 4 from 6 sections to 7 sections due to the needs of the students in that class. The other position was the world language position. And what this allows us to do is do an introduction to world language in grade 6, but then it allows us to have 5 days a week grade 7 world language and 5 days a week grade 8 world language. In other words, world language is not treated like an elective, it is treating like the academic subject that it is meant to be. So this is a crucial restore. But, perhaps the mistake that I made was using the word restore. We're restoring them by taking them from someplace else. So these 6 positions are achieved through anticipated retirement savings, 2 of them, and the other 4 through repositioning staff throughout the building. So this is not a plus teachers on top of what we already have. If we started with this many teachers, even when we change to this, we are not adding teachers. So I think that's important for everybody to realize that your original budget did things without putting dollars additional on top. Now on the back are the purple positions that the board chose to approve. Now, all of them, even though they didn't make the first cut of the budget, they are easily defendable. I look at that kindergarten position and, I think what people look at this and, there's that rumblings underneath that, well, you're having declining enrollment, you really don't need additional teachers. While we are having declining enrollment in our kindergarten class for the last 2 years, there is no other place in any grade level that's any lower. In fact, if you look at the enrollment report, you started Memorial School with 576 students. You are now plus 16 at 591 as of March. So for people to walk around saying you have declining enrollment really isn't factual. Our kindergarten class for the last 2 years has been smaller. So you could say that we are seeing the signs of beginning declining enrollment because each class is progressively getting smaller. But to just use the word declining enrollment, saying you don't need to restore a classroom teacher in grade 5, you don't need a math teacher that we lost 2 years ago, you don't need a health PE teacher that we lost with the new graduation requirements. To say that we don't need these because of declining enrollment really isn't looking at what the issue is. So for the last 2 years, our kindergarten class has been smaller. Over the next 10 years, as that progresses, if it stays the same, then we'll be able to say, yes, our enrollment has declined, we need about one less teacher in the position. But I would make the case with you right now that you don't even need one less teacher in kindergarten, because this year, you have 125 kindergarten students being taught by 6 teachers. That's 21 students average per class. Most districts would put in an aide, say, wait, if we're gonna have 21 kindergartners, we have to have a full-time aide in that. You don't have a full-time aide, you have aides that pop in as available, or I should say, we call them para-educators. It is cheaper for us to add 1 teacher and break it down to 18 instead of hiring 6 para-educators. So if we hire 1 teacher next year, and it's supposed to be around 125 for next year, that would give us 7 teachers at 18. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at 18, other districts would still be putting a para-educator into the classroom. So I think we have to be careful that we say, well, we have declining enrollment. Our kindergarten numbers still warrant 7 teachers. And these other 3 positions are positions that when we were not having any declining enrollment in kindergarten, we still eliminated. So I think you have to look at these 4 positions and say, these are easily justifiable. We're able to put them in because of the break we're getting in insurance. If you feel like the budget that I presented is about the right amount, then these 4 positions with the insurance decrease make a lot of sense. And that's something that we should be having a discussion. Not saying, well, you have declining enrollment, you don't need teachers in high school, middle school, and center school, where if you look at the enrollment, there is no declining enrollment at all. I think your argument needs to be, we can justify these positions with that insurance break, still keep our increase as to what it was, close to what it was in January, and actually restore some positions that were cut from 2 years ago. So, this is a document that I hope that people pass around. I'd be glad to answer any questions on that.
I agree with that. I'm just looking at the overall, from January till this month, we went up 14 students. Yeah. January to now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've picked up, you picked up 10 at the middle school in 2 months.
Yeah.
You're up 15 from where you were at the beginning of the year at the remote school. Yes.
And does this account, center school just had 3 more, right?
Yes, started today.
So those aren't in this.
Those are not in there.
So another 3, just in the last 2 months. Wow. Amanda?
We had 2 more at Memorial.
Today?
One started Wednesday, one started yesterday.
Wow.
So that's 6 in the last 2 days, or last couple days.
Wow.
Plus the 14.
Okay, sorry, Amanda.
Well, I just wanted to make a point that, when we discuss, people need to understand, the history of the positions were eliminated. So even adding these additional positions that we chose to add with the cost savings that we were realizing still has us behind where we were. And, if you're talking, you have an average of how many kindergartners per class right now?
21.
21. So you really would need to be significantly smaller than that to talk about eliminating sections or, and when we talk about we do a good job here in East Hampton, and we do, but it's hard to know what you're missing because it's an absence. and it's hard to quantify an absence. And I just want to share my perspective. And I realize it's different because I don't teach in East Hampton, and I wouldn't sit on the board if I did. I don't think I'd be allowed to.
No.
But I teach a special area, and so I have everybody, and I'm at 2 schools, which gives me the opportunity, uniquely compare. As far as my kindergartners go, one of my schools we started out with maybe 16, 17 per class in kindergarten. We were at 18 in one, and then we've actually declined a couple, so we're down to like 15. So 15, 16, 17, 18. And then at my other school, 23, 22. And while I don't think that, and one class manages that better than the other because of the personalities and the issues and it would be difficult for the parents, the students, even the teachers necessarily to know what they're missing. But I have to say, as their PE teacher, it is not the same. Like what I'm able to give my 15, 16, 17 class versus what I'm able to do with 22 and 23, it's just not the same because and I do the best I can. I wouldn't say that teachers, parents, students would complain because they don't know what they're missing, So I think that while we do an admirable job with what we have, and I think you do a really good job of trying to creatively, like, how can we maximize what we have to work with here? You're quantifying an absence, and it's very, very difficult to do that because you don't know what you're missing. And I think that's where we're at, that people really don't know what they're missing, and people are satisfied because you
do a good job.
But there's things that you could have that you don't even know that you could have. If that makes sense. I just wanted to make that point.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you for clarifying on the restoring the teachers. That makes, as I'm voting no on the budget, this makes me feel better voting no, if that's the right way. But I appreciate you clarifying that because that makes more sense to me. Great. I just want to say I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
So let's move on to coronavirus.
Okay.
What
What a great segue there.
What's the last item on this?
Which one's better?
So I will be brief because everybody in the state is now an expert on coronavirus.
Oh, yes.
I would urge everybody to read the email that I sent out today.
Our state's newest expert.
Yes, I am an expert on the coronavirus now. In it, we describe the conditions which could lead to a possible closure. I also describe what will be our teachers' efforts to create a continuity of instruction should we be forced to close or should we decide to close. And I'll clarify that in a minute. At the same time, the state is deciding what to do. We're looking at, there's now an additional case. Other schools have made some decisions. I sit on more conference calls than I care to. But probably the most telling one was tonight at 5 p.m. there was a conference call with the governor, State Department of Education head, and several emergency officials. And the conference call was open to all town officials, emergency officials in the town, and school superintendents. And I just wanted to share a couple of details because I think it's telling the direction that the state is going to take. So the governor is, in speaking to other governors, especially out west, his attitude is to do more sooner rather than wait. And other governors are saying, gee, I wish we had done things a little bit sooner. So our governor is committed to, and he kept saying this a couple of times, do more sooner. We all know that COVID-19 is highly contagious, mainly because we don't have antibodies to it. So here's a couple of things that the state is doing, not recommending necessarily to schools yet. The state is abandoning all activities that have crowds of over 100 people. So in other words, if they have big meetings, they are doing it by teleconference. They're not scheduling meetings where more than 100 people get together. They are asking us down the road to look at our big events, our concerts, our plays, other things like that, and say, is it prudent to have them with 500, 600 people in attendance? We're not making that decision tonight, and I really don't have a recommendation for that. I have a meeting with superintendents in the area on Friday morning, and I think we're all going to talk about that. But at this time, and the logic in that is that because our senior population, those 65, 70, 80, are at most risk, at those tight events where there's so many people, those are where it's more likely to spread. The state has already canceled its St. Patrick's Day parades in New Haven and Hartford. They're just trying to scale down any large events. Now, we have a couple of, right on your schedule in the next 2 weeks, we have home basketball playoff games, and we have our big musical is coming up. We have our big step-up concert where we'll put half of the school population, 1,000 kids in the gym. So I think we're going to make decisions right now on a case-by-case basis. I have a meeting with Russ Melmed, the director of Chatham Health, with the principals. Tomorrow we're going to have some conversations about that. CIAC is not canceling any of their tournament games. They're asking for the gyms to be cleaned after school so that at least we go in with a fresh gym as much as possible if you can get a gym clean. At least the railings and the door handles and things like that. Especially because once again, that's a place where grandparents go and other events. So that crowds of over 100, we may have to make some difficult decisions about school events coming up. I don't think we're in a position to do that now, but you may hear of me saying we're scaling back larger events in the near future. The other thing that the governor is doing is no state workers are to travel out of the state at this point for any business. And we've already heard of colleges that are suggesting to their students they do not go home for spring break just in case they can't get back into the state or they get quarantined where they are. I am concerned about our own field trips we have a group of middle school students going to Montreal, and we have a large group of high schools going down to Virginia in April. And there are schools at this point that are canceling out-of-state school field trips for the remainder of the year, and I am going to ask you to vote on whether you'd like to do that or not. I think that's something that you should all agree on, because there is possible loss of funds to family, especially if you don't do it tonight. The longer we wait, the more families are risking at this point. And then the other thing is, in regards to school closure, there are two options for the schools. Typically, we've got to go 180 days. And if you have 10 snow days, you still go 180 days. There is the possibility that schools can do a full closure, close on their own, and completely shut down everything, then come back and make up those days. It means that if we lost 10 school days or something like that, if we had to close for 2 weeks, you would be going to school till June 30th. And if we had more days than that, we would have to apply for a waiver so that school ended on June 30th. The commissioner has said you could also take days away from your April vacation. But if we close for 2 weeks or it gets close to April vacation, I can't tell families and teachers, 3 days before April vacation, oh yeah, we're going to close when we now and when we're going to make it up over April vacation. It's almost too late to cancel things for April vacation. The other option is, if the superintendent can certify that distance learning is taking place, providing equity to all students, special ed needs, and meets the teacher's contract, then we can apply for a waiver as long as teaching is going on at home. So if we had 10 school days, what we would do is we would say to our teachers, you will be working at home, giving instruction via, and it's much easier for grades 7 to 12, I certainly will admit, with Chromebooks and Google Classroom and things like that. But part of the reason we're giving teachers time to start thinking about that on Friday, March 13th, is for our elementary teachers to come up with grade level plans whether it's packets of material or other information that we send home through Parent Square as time goes on. But at least we're asking teachers to start thinking about the possibility. To try to have school, close down for 2 weeks, and if that became necessary, and try to go to June 30th, it's just agony. It's not appropriate learning. The distance learning may not be perfect, but I guarantee it will be better than every single day after June 20th. So the 10 days that you have this distance learning, you're going to get threefold, maybe tenfold of what you would on June 29th and 30th. So my first option, if we did have to close, is that we would guarantee that our teachers were working at home, that we would provide as consistent of an education as possible. It means a lot of work for our special ed teachers, and we don't quite know how that looks yet, because we've got to meet the requirements of students' IEPs. But Jackie Russell, who's sitting in the audience, and Rodney, our special ed director, are two very clever people, and I know ideas are already going through their heads to meet that. There's a lot of businesses that are going to be told to work at home. I don't think it's out of the realm for us to say to our teachers and our staff that you would be working at home. Para-educators, it's a little bit more difficult, but it's also a great time for us to do online professional learning for them. Our paraeducators don't get the same amount of professional development as our teachers, and it's something that we try to squeeze in as available. But to know that we could offer professional development online, and see Mary's thinking, smoke coming out of her ears right now, would be a great opportunity as well. So, if the pieces are in place, I could certify to the commissioner that distance learning is taking place. We have to apply for a waiver. I'm not sure what type of documentation I would have to prove. Mr. Quinn is here. I could just submit his lesson plans to the commissioner. I'm sure the commissioner would say, you are all set, East Hampton. So, none of us really knows what this looks like yet. But instead of talking about it the day before we may have to close, we are talking about it actively now, and we will be preparing on Friday. So that is the latest on the coronavirus.
So then let's take those two field trips. First is the Virginia one. What details on that? Who is it?
It is the music department. Yeah. They are traveling down to Virginia Beach. Yeah. They are competing in a music festival with probably 2,000 or 3,000 other children from across the United States. Yeah. They'll be staying in a hotel and spending some time at Busch Gardens or one of the parks in Virginia Beach. So there's a lot of moving parts to that. They are not flying down, but they are busing down through every state from here to Virginia that has coronavirus in it.
Okay, with the
and I don't mean to make light of the details. It's just... nothing may materialize, but there is a deadline of Friday for when the music department now can't, according to their business. The 12th, which is Thursday.
So Thursday is a deadline to cancel.
To recoup
all the funds.
I think it's the majority of the funds.
There are some funds that they will not be able to, and if we wait any longer, it will be even less than that.
So, as principal and superintendent and Mr. Shoyanska, are you involved in this trip? No, you're not.
This one's a high school music department.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So as I was sitting on that call with the superintendent, I reached out to my shoreline principal colleagues, and by and large, all the other districts in the shoreline are canceling out-of-state trips as we speak. They're moving through that process now, so we're meeting on.
The one that concerns me a little more, even though there's not that many cases in Canada, is Montreal, because what they're saying with international travel is if you can't afford to stay in that country for an additional period of time, you should not go to that country. And just having our students across the border in a situation where they were quarantined there or could not get back, I think that the risks to us, even though we are at the early phase of this, we've seen how quickly this spreads through other states. I think rather than wait and 2 days before saying, gee, we need to cancel this trip, I think, to allow people to make their plans, I think it's only fair and unfortunate that we should do this to them.
Okay, what was the expected or the planned date for Virginia to leave?
It's a week after April vacation.
It's like April 20th.
April 20th?
As of now, is that entire festival still on though? The festival itself has not been competition?
You know, the festival could end up canceling. It's just our music department is going through a travel agency that isn't associated with that music festival. So our loss is through the travel
It's not
agent that
connected.
they've booked. Right. So they booked through a third-party travel agent that does all the details, including the registration at the festival.
It's the 23rd through the 26th.
So as we currently stand, the trip costs $761 a person. If we cancel by Thursday, March 12th, students will get $364 back currently. If we wait until April 2nd, it will be $239 back, and after that, there will be no refunds. In looking with the research that Mr. Groves and Mr. Brown did, there is a chance that individual vendors may elect to be more forgiving with their cancellation policies if an outbreak will occur, but will not have any information about that until such a situation actually occurred. The travel agents are reaching out to each vendor individually to try and secure larger refunds than what their policy dictates.
So right now it's about half. Okay, Montreal details. What date was that for?
April 15th through the 17th.
And specific group and number of kids there?
Number of kids was, I think, around, last I checked, I want to say it was around 40 to 45.
And do you have any refund numbers, dates, like we talked about the high school trip?
We're waiting, we put an email out to the company. We're waiting to hear back from them to get an exact figure. Also was on their website today looking at, they have a whole section on this. But it's pretty vague in its response, basically that they'll, redo trips later on, things like that, but there's not really a lot of mention of refund.
So if that was to be canceled, is that something that would be looked at rescheduling as an option for this group?
That's kind of what their company's alluding to, that they'd like to reschedule,
Yeah.
but of course they want more money.
Well, yeah. But
It's also a lot of, how many 8th graders are on the trip?
40.
It's all 8th grade.
All 8th graders,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have to reschedule this.
So you'd be looking for the fall or next year.
Oh, that's true.
Right, they're in a different building.
So it'd have to
How
cancel.
much was that
Yeah.
trip? What was the student expense?
So it's 175, 165, all payments have been made already, it was last due February 28th. So, 2, 3,
500.
4, 50,
550.
515.
515, yeah. And we don't know the numbers. All right, other questions, thoughts? So then, is it your recommendation of the two principals that these trips be canceled? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but I want to get all the input, Honestly, your thoughts, what on moving forward?
I think it's prudent for us to cancel all out-of-state field trips for the remainder of the year.
Other board questions?
Do we need a motion?
We do need a motion then if we're going to do this, yeah.
So what?
So how about a motion
cancel?
to cancel the high school music trip to Virginia?
Or all,
Or just
all,
do
Or
it
just
all
do it
out-of-state.
as one?
All
Okay.
out-of-state field trips.
Okay.
And for the, do we put an end period on this, or?
Why don't you say for the remainder of the year?
For the remainder of the year?
This has implications if students make the New England track.
I was gonna say
thing
sporting.
and Other things. So I think it's easier if you just cancel at this point. Now, if something happens all of a sudden, May 1, coronavirus has disappeared from the planet.
We
you
can revoke
you
this.
revoke this if you want.
Okay.
But I think it's easier if we just now let people know that out-of-state planning
Until the end of the school year?
until the end of the school year.
All right, so.
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a
Jeff
motion.
makes that motion. Second. Jim, discussion?
I don't know if we have much choice. I mean, we're just
Yeah.
at the onset of this now.
Planning.
I'm just wondering, like, I would imagine, and we don't need to put in anything, but you might be able to, I would hope that these vendors would offer some recourse, and
Yeah.
that it would be pursued, you know, because we, like you said, all the shoreline is looking to pull, so it's,
They're getting calls from 50 schools, you
Yeah.
know, for the music festival, I'm sure, and, you know, the company that's dealing with Montreal, every school is doing this right now, so they've got to.
yeah, but I'm saying, I'm hoping, given the extraordinary nature of what's going on,
They can
that,
recoup more
that
of this. Yeah.
these businesses can like go to their insurers and, you know, whatever they need to do, because,
And they also want the school's future business
Yeah.
as well.
I think that's probably
Because
the
it's
biggest bargaining chip.
Yeah.
you know, it's tough for people who have come up with this money and then
Yeah, I
they lose
know.
it. But like Paul said, if, you know, they go somewhere and then they can't get back, like, then what do you do?
Yeah.
You know,
Stuck
that's
for
an
2
expense
weeks,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, the idea of having 45 eighth graders
In a hotel.
Montreal.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
And the adults that would be like,
Stranded. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be nice.
It's not-
Okay, so we have a motion, second, anything else? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. No one opposed, unfortunately.
Who opposed?
No one opposed. No. No one. Can we just get updates as you guys hear on status of refunds and all that?
And if we can do anything to
Yeah.
help that, I mean, I imagine.
If you need
they're
a letter
being
or something.
Bombarded, but if that's important.
I'll meet with Mr. Rose and Mr. Brown first thing tomorrow morning, start the call together and explain.
Okay. Unfortunate.
We have had previous discussions with them, so this isn't a total shock
Yeah.
to them at this point.
Okay. All yours. Enrollment, we kind of covered enrollment.
Yep. If you have any questions?
Anyone on enrollment? Okay. Presentation?
Coming up under new business.
Yes, okay, so there's nothing else. Unfinished, we have policy to review and accept or not. So the motion is to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education Policy and Curriculum Committee and approve policy 5142.41, Armed Security Officer 2020. So that one was the revision written after the 6-month trial period.
Correct. Your 6-month trial period ends in 4 hours.
But the revision is just striking the line that says.
Correct. There's no change to the wording except to strike out 6-month
Trial.
trial.
Yeah. So that's the motion. How about, is there a second, and then we'll do discussion?
Second.
Nancy K. Now open up any comments, questions?
In the 6 months, has there been anything that gives any evidence that this actually would deter any sort of action?
There has not been an incident that required him to.
Not even here.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general. I don't know of any.
And I know there was a good question earlier. I know when we started the venture looking into this position, there was a survey done, I believe.
Correct.
And then recently, there was a follow-up survey, correct? Okay.
Yes, I think we shared that a couple meetings ago.
Yeah, I just want to look at that. There it is, yes.
The numbers the first time you did this last spring were in the 70s for yes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just note, I mean, it's obvious and yet not, that the discussion that we've had around this was not to add a security officer. He was already there, and so we were simply discussing whether he could carry a concealed weapon. So, you know, the discussion to bring in a security officer or not is a whole other thing, and that isn't what we talked about. So he was already there, and so we simply were talking about if he's going to be here, will he be
Sure.
able to have?
And even in the policy you develop, should he leave and you hire a new one,
Yeah.
They don't automatically have.
you don't automatically start with
Yeah.
a weapon. There's a
we
time
have
period that would be expected.
New people that weren't here necessarily for that, and
Thank you, yeah.
it's just, you know, it's an important
There were
point
two
to
issues,
note
yeah.
that, you know, when people think about, you know, oh, having an armed security officer, recognize that we already have a security officer. He just didn't have that tool at his disposal should he need it at some
Yeah,
point.
the question is whether or not a gun will be brought into the school.
Yeah.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All those in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 2, 4, so it's 5-2. Okay, so the motion passes. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. Okay. New business. Now we have our honor roll for high school and middle school.
Why is it a new business instead of a presentation?
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
That's right.
Hi.
Alpha Curl went into the back. I can just hold this and hold it off.
I'll use it again afterwards. Don't worry about it.
Funny, not funny. Well, thank you all for indulging us tonight for our honor roll and high honor roll presentation. Should be pretty straightforward, just to kind of give you the ins and outs, nuts and bolts of how we do our honor roll and high honor roll. East Hampton Middle School, in an effort to recognize, this is pretty much straight out of our handbook, and honor students who have attained high levels of achievement in their academic endeavors. East Hampton Middle School publishes an honor roll list each quarter. High honors are granted for students who have earned a GPA average of 3.67 or higher. I'll get into that a little bit more. And honors is granted for students who have earned a GPA average of 3.0 to 3.66. There can be no grades below the B range and no incomplete grades. All subjects are weighted based on how frequently a class meets. So for example, a math class is going to meet 5 days a week. That's going to be weighted more heavily than a class, like a world language class that maybe meets twice a week. For those of you that aren't familiar with the GPA equivalents to letter grades, this is what they are. This is how this is calculated. And our statistics, quarter 1 and quarter 2, out of our 468 students, 304 had high honors, 72 had honors. Second quarter, high honors, 271, and 80 had honors. I did reach out to several other districts in our RESC. We kind of have a roundtable group where a lot of times we'll send out emails to the group to kind of discuss, hey, I got this particular situation. How did some of you address that? So these are just, I'm not going to read through them all, but please feel free to look. Interestingly enough, I felt a couple standouts were Old Saybrook does not have honors or high honors.
No recognition whatsoever to the achieving students?
I think they give them an air high five now. Don't, and just say good job. No, in all seriousness, I'm sure that they provide some sort of positive recognition, but it's not in the form of high honors and honors. I'd be happy to look into that if you'd like.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I just wanted you to think that. What do I know?
Mostly they were all kind of in a similar vein, where they had either
nothing below a C, A's and B's, and that was kind of the major components. Do we need me to leave that up for a minute, or everybody good? I think it'd be part of your slides presentation. You'll be able to see. All right, Mr. Brown.
For Jason, we had the goal of next year adding that world language back in and reducing study halls and.
I'm smiling.
Yeah.
Trying to hold back.
Yeah, I can see that. Prediction, not a prediction, but thoughts on where those numbers would go, adding that extra course, which is going to be a struggle for some.
Sure.
And eliminating those study halls, which when we rely on to do work for the other classes.
Well, I think without getting too deep into the weeds on our grading side of things, which is a whole other conversation, I think that we've moved largely towards a more mastery-based learning system and philosophy. So regardless if a student is struggling with that, teachers are more in tune to that now and are looking for ways to remediate their learning sooner. So I think that has impacted our numbers, and it's going to be something that, despite us having another class in there, as wonderful as that's going to be, I think still students are going to persevere and be resilient.
And so from the high school perspective, very much in similarity to the middle school, our honor roll provides a means to recognize and honor students who have obtained a high level of academic achievement in the high school. The honor roll list is published quarterly. As Jason said a couple slides ago, that's what the grades are. The slight difference at the high school is that grades are weighted based on AP versus honors versus different levels of classes. So if you're taking an AP course, an A is more than a 4.0 in an honors level course for GPA purposes.
So that's where the grade point averages of above 4 come in.
Potentially,
so students are taking.
They're challenging themselves and taking some rigorous courses and doing well. So our honor roll, the standard that we've set for high honors, and there's two pieces to this. For high honors, GPA of at least 3.67. For high honors and for honors, it is a GPA of at least 3.0, with the caveat that students must carry a full course load, which is 7 credits. This includes either physical education and or health, depending on the grade that they are in. They can have no incompletes and no grade lower than a C-. So you can't have 6 A's and a D and still make the honor roll. This past school year so far, we had 220 students on high honors and 147 make the honor roll. And the second quarter was 207 and 140 for honor roll at the high school. Other districts that I reached out to and that are very similar to ours: Portland High School, Old Saybrook at the high school. Canton High School is the exact same. I just know that from experience. Bolton High School, a little different. High honors is all A's and 1 B+, which is roughly a minimum of 3.67 if you do the math all the way out. And the same thing what they call academic honors. So again, our honor roll policy is in line with many districts surrounding us and a couple that I have some experience in. And moving forward, a couple things that we're doing at the high school. We undertook long before this discussion a really thoughtful discussion at the high school about what an A really is. So we're talking about our grading practices. A lot of that's been led by Mr. Warner and his discussions in our professional development time. What is an A? If I'm teaching U.S. history and he's teaching U.S. history, are A's the same? So we're having a lot of those conversations. And as Jason had mentioned, we're talking about the processes by which we grade things. I remember being in school, writing a 20-page paper on the Battle of Midway and why it was a turning point in the war in the Pacific. I handed it in. 2 weeks later, I got it back, all kinds of red pen, put it in my backpack, and went about my next thing. Now, our process is very different. Kids write a thesis. They get feedback from the teacher. They fix it. They do research. They get feedback from the teacher. They fix it. So when it's handed in, it's done very, very well. So we're talking about getting towards mastery. And students have many opportunities to get feedback and to revise their work. And that's across all of our disciplines. So it's really helpful that they're being successful. They're handing in their very best work, which is what we want to encourage them to do.
So the first to go around might be a B-, but then as they rework and they can bump it up to whatever.
If they're willing to do the work and take the feedback from the teacher, then there's no reason why their grades wouldn't be to the level that we want them to be. Again, a finished product, sort of that mastery-based level.
I think to clarify further, it's not necessarily that there's given a grade on the first attempt.
Oh,
it might be something where they're handing in, and the teacher's saying, all right, well, we're going to hand in a rough draft of this week. So they might hand that to the teacher. Or they might say, hey, we're going to peer review this week. So they'll hand it to one of their peers, and their peers give them feedback on it. So it's inherent in the process of them writing and learning.
as opposed to just here's your grade, and you get a lot of red ink on your paper like Mr. Berger saying, how much
If the
red ink
student,
you
if
actually
the
want.
student doesn't want to do any better, does that happen? Or that all students are encouraged to?
They're encouraged that, we push and pull as much as we can. There are a handful and there are other issues that we're trying to get them to do the work. Yes.
So, because looking at the numbers, it's a change because historically you would see like there would be more on honors than on high honors, but because you're providing more feedback and they're having more opportunities along the way, as you're saying, we're seeing more on the high honors because the students who are motivated to take that feedback and do what the feedback is saying, this would make it better, you need to do this more. The motivated students are now getting better feedback to get a better result.
I would say students across the board. I've seen some instances with some of our, say, struggling learners who made the honor roll and their names published, and they were so proud. They would say to me, I'm so proud, it's the first time I ever made honor roll. So even our struggling learners, it gives them multiple opportunities to grow and be successful.
So it's through this process with mastery based where they're getting more feedback in order to be successful. So it's not like, back, when I was in school, it's like, almost like what you're saying, you get the assignment, you do it, and whatever you got, you got.
You get what you get, yeah.
And you get some feedback, but at that point it's not helpful because you already having better luck next time.
Pretty much.
So now this is a change in procedure. Not just procedure, not the right word, but
learning is a process, and so I think students are really, with the dedicated faculty that we both have in our schools, are taking advantage of the process and the opportunities in front of them.
I see this to continue on that, Paul, one of the meetings when we started the budget, we used to talk about how learning was when you were in school, and it's not the way it is now. And I think that statement out there is kind of maybe for the PR community, something that's what we need to get out there. Things have changed.
Well,
this is how it is done now.
And to your point, when we talk about really big sections, and it's not like a teacher's just this, it's not the minimum feedback. This is a lot of feedback and multiple times. And so when you have big sections, that's a lot of work.
Yes.
I think, we want students to experience real life in their learning. If there's a job and the boss isn't happy with the work, he doesn't give you a C+. He says you need to go back and improve the quality of this work. And I think, we want students to master the material. When I was learning to ride a bike, I fell, and then I fell again, and then I fell again, and I rode. So F, 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 and an A. And I felt really good at the end. But if that was a grade, I failed. I had 3 Fs and an A, that's an F. But the goal is to get the kid to ride the bike. So, what we're trying to do is take an old system of honoring students and a new method that we're trying to teach students and make them meld. So what you're seeing is you've set a bar and kids are reaching it. We should be celebrating that. So now I think you need to look at the system and say, okay, how do we make the honor roll really reflect students achieving at the highest levels? Not changing the way we're teaching, but perhaps changing the way that we're honoring students.
Well, honestly, if you're recognizing, I know there are people that say, well, everybody gets a trophy, that kind of thing, but this really isn't that. If students really are working harder and are motivated to take feedback, and it takes a lot of work, and the people who are doing that work, it's not necessarily a bad thing to say, we see you.
And this mastery is in every class? I did not know that. I didn't know. That's what. So I was talking to Paula earlier. I said she's got 80% of the kids are making that. I'm glad that I see that, but now I know why the number is.
Sure. I think you have another factor in reality. is that, look back to when we were in school, that this was not, the majority of your students were not expected to go to a secondary level, go to a college, it was a percentage, but it was a smaller percentage. You also have communication with things like Power School, where parents are heavily involved and know what grades are there like that. So it's actually a great thing we should be celebrating as well, is that we have a fantastic partnership between our teacher, our students, and our parents, and everybody's working to make sure that child's successful. So that increases your number as well.
You mentioned all classes, and our electronics class the other day, students were making like an operation game. And the process was, well, does the circuit work? Well, no. Well, why not? Let's fix it. It doesn't work, you failed. Let's fix the circuit so that it works, so they can understand the basics of electronics.
And it's not too time consuming to go back and fix and recheck and redo,
It takes time, but it's time well spent.
Quality versus quantity, That's quality instruction.
And this is, when we say, this is new and this is different, this is not like specific to, it's not something that East Hampton does that other places aren't doing. This is very much.
Great, we can coin that, right?
This is kind of what, if we
This is the norm in education.
Yeah, if we weren't doing this, we would stand out in the wrong way.
Okay, I believe so.
Just to clarify.
Do we know if other schools are doing the same thing?
The school I came from, that was the writing process in social studies and English, and everything was peer conferencing, editing, revising, until you come very close to a finished product. And even, in graduate school, handing something in and getting a B+, but with feedback to redo it, because that wasn't good enough. So it's the norm in education.
What are the conversations going on in your building regarding honor roll and recognition of students?
So we're talking not so much about honor roll, but just our grading processes in general. Like, for example, do you give zeros, or do you give students opportunities to hand in work regardless, even if it's for maybe a little less credit? Because again, it's about the learning, not the grade, so to speak. So we're talking about student learning. We're moving away from, okay, you talk 3 times today, you lose 5 points on your grade for the day. We're trying to move away from that so that it's about what you actually are doing in the class and learning, which therefore shows your grade is based on your learning.
Yeah, we had a grading reform committee that started, now 3 years ago. Very grassroots movement in the building. Mr. Kissinger's been pretty instrumental in keeping that going and keeping us moving in the right direction. And we made some pretty monstrous changes this year in terms of incorporating an active learning portion to the grade. So it's not just about their achievement, it's not just about their homework. There's an active learning component which really addresses a lot of those soft skills that we talk about. Kids know the rubric. The teacher was just telling me the other day that they're sitting there referencing the rubric, and it's really all about how am I actively engaging in my education while I'm in the classroom. So there's a rubric for that, there's a rubric for conduct, and some of these components, some of these soft skills are things that we don't necessarily, the active learning is directly numerically in the grade. Some of the other ones we definitely want to incorporate and highlight, even more so than we currently do. We have them kind of in the comments field. And I don't know about you, but my kids, that's the first place I look, is what does the teacher say about how you are working in class? If I know that it says here that you're putting in 100% effort every day, but you got a C-, I'm okay with that with my kids. As long as they're really working hard, because that's important. That's a life skill. You'll get the content eventually, but if you're not working hard at it, then I need to know that as a parent to be able to address that.
Maybe I can make a recommendation that end of May, early June, you come back to Policy and Curriculum Subcommittee just with some continued conversation and recommendations.
Sure.
If I can just add, Jim, when you were asking about the rest of the field, I think I just want to give a lot of credit to both the teams at the middle and high school for also doing a lot of research and both in sort of action research about what other school districts are doing. So they have done that to inform their practices, and in fact last May we attended a statewide conference that the RESC Alliance, which is the 6 regional education service centers across the state, joined together to facilitate, which was all around this issue, and it was teachers sharing with teachers their practices in regards to this. So it was really about how this is working in schools statewide, and that's not just a unique Connecticut process, because a lot of classroom work is now guided by something we refer to as the cycle of intentional teaching, which means that learning doesn't ever stop. So, we're always adding to our skill set and our knowledge and deepening our learning. And so a key component of that cycle is always sort of seeing where we are and measuring in the process, giving feedback and adding to that instruction so the student continues to grow and thrive. And I think that's what we're seeing in practice in this space.
Because I know this might be impossible to do, but is there any way to get the first iteration, second, third, to see where the student started and where he or she finished up? It'd be wonderful just to see the progress in that learning. Is that
With regard to what, like a particular
Yeah.
assignment?
yeah, particular assignment, or is that the?
Yeah, I think
I
that
don't know if that's, it doesn't you cross the kid's name off that, just to see.
Yeah, those are some things we could bring
Yeah,
in June,
right.
you're crossing out some identifiable information and looking at it, sure.
Picturing the evolution of man right now.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Understood, that's a great analogy.
Great, thank you, Ben.
Thank you, guys.
By the way, these blue binded materials are the updated budget, reflects the positions that you've added and the percentage. I'm going to give these out on Monday the 23rd. You can take one before you go home tonight.
Those are different than what we
They are
have.
different from what you have. These are March 2020s.
I think I might. This one, some right to the box.
Yes. Oh, did I already give those?
Yeah.
They're in the packet.
Oh, they're in the packet. Oh, great. Okay.
Rosemary beat you.
Rosemary is all over that. Thank you.
We have them. Okay. Very good, very good. To policy committee, want to give a highlight of the first one, review?
Yes, and I actually was not able to be there for this meeting, so.
Then you can just
Here,
be
Paul,
quiet.
if you want.
Anyone
Yeah,
else?
We had some legal updates.
First one was
Let's see
for.
which one we have first.
Age of attendance.
Age of
Yes.
attendance.
Yeah.
But it really spoke more to homeless students and just a change from making sure that instead of students having access to the material, if they were being signed up by a parent, that the school had to ensure that they provide the materials. There's just a slight wording change there.
Oh, the new stuff on the second page. Okay.
Yeah, at the bottom of the first page, the blue isn't quite showing up as nicely on this one, but there's 2 new paragraphs at the bottom and 2 paragraphs at the end.
And these are coming from KDA's recommendations, or are they?
They were legal updates that they suggested for our existing policy, and they've gone through the policy committee. In fact, Nancy repositioned paragraphs in the first one, so they made good sense.
Flow
Flow,
better.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay. All right, and then the second one is. the
Is
homeless
just
students.
some language about homeless students.
Yep.
It's on page C.
Any questions on either of those? They'll be on the agenda next meeting for discussion and or approval.
Now, these changes are just
Updates,
updates from the state.
basically.
They're updates with current legislation. It's nice when your policy and the law say the same thing.
It does help, yes. Future business, anybody? Anybody? None? Personnel actions, I know it's part of the consent agenda. I just want to recognize there's 2 staff retiring, unfortunately.
Can I make a suggestion on future business?
We could go back to that, yes, you can.
Okay. In April, you will be in the new town hall, if all goes as planned, and I'm assuming it will. My suggestion is that at some point in April or May, that you continue to have one board meeting here, but also have one board meeting at the town hall, just to get people going into the town hall and for you to take advantage of a nice room to meet in. Not that this isn't a nice room.
Okay, so are we still, they're still thinking the beginning of April?
April 9th is, 9/10 is the move-in day.
So why don't we just set it now, where the first meeting of the month will be here at the high school, and the second meeting of the month which will be the 27th of April, be at the town hall.
At the town hall.
So,
Rosemary, would you
first
take
at the
care
high
of booking
school.
that? Thank you.
Does that make sense? First at the high school, last meeting at the town hall.
Before we do that, I just have a technical question.
Yeah.
Are we going to be able to live stream our meetings from there also?
Would we be able to live stream our meetings from the new town hall?
What's that?
We would have to double check that.
I'm assuming.
Probably ask Rich Fielding to go with me and check it out. We would need to have either network or Wi-Fi access in order to live
So I'm assuming we should.
I'm okay with that as long, but that's such,
Yeah.
it's an
Oh, yeah,
important.
that's important to us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we
So
couldn't
we'll do
have that
that.
for April, we could wait till May
Yes.
or June or next year to do that.
So we'll do that plan pending
Yeah.
everything's in place.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Means you're gonna owe Irene a big favor because it's.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, audience of citizens, we have any?
Yeah.
Yes, there's Mr. Hines. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob Ray, 19 Burgess Road. Watching the presentation on the honor roll, a couple things pop up because I'm an old BOE. And I don't know if I want to say I'm afraid or fearing, but it seems to me that the honor roll is moving more and more towards almost a participation trophy status. And I'm thinking back to my statistics courses about when you have that much weighting forward to the higher grades, then statistically it's, most statisticians would say there's something a little wacky. I just think we have to be careful on that. We don't want to be like Garrison Keeler's Prairie Home Companion where all the students are above average. I mean, it just isn't the real world. Just something we have to be aware of. Because, and one reason I say that is I know when I was passing out the honor roll certificates to kids at various times, most of them are very appreciative of doing it, but there's a few that just hold up and throw it away and say it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's because it's just that kid who was standing in the back, I don't know. Just something we have to think about.
Okay. Good. Hearing them? Motion to adjourn? Jess, I know he's ready. Second?
Second.
And, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I do not have to say.
No, I think it went down.
That's usually the day the city.
The line's so nice.
It's great.